Check. Okay.
Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I'm Margaret Clark, and I'm the manager of Dogwood Books and Gifts. And I have the pleasure of introducing our very special guest tonight, Sister Monica Clare. She's been interviewed by Anderson Cooper. She's been on Jenna and Friends. She's a TikTok sensation. And now she's going to be interviewed by our very own beloved Reverend Susie Post. And so we're going to have her books for sale, Change of Habit, and she's going to be signing them afterwards. Also, Dogwood Books and Gifts is going to be open. If you'd like to do some of your Christmas shopping, you can come on in. But please join me in welcoming Sister Monica Clare and Susie Post.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome everybody. It's wonderful to be here. I asked Sister Monica if we wanted to have a little prayer before we started, and I said, would you like me to pray or would you like to pray? And she graciously said she would pray. So I asked her to say a little prayer as we begin.
And hi to that service dog out there. Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you so much for bringing us together this night. We thank you for the gift of fellowship and friends. We thank you very much for people who still love books. We ask you to please send the Holy Spirit to be with us as we talk tonight and help all of us in this room to grow closer to you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Well, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
And I hope that some of you have read this book, or if you haven't, I hope you'll get it. It's absolutely wonderful. Before we delve into your book, I think it's important to get out of the way the fact that there are Episcopal nuns and there are Episcopal convents. So could you just talk briefly about your convent and your order?
Yes. I'm going to turn this out so I can see everybody over there a little bit better. Okay. A lot of the impetus behind everything I do is to raise awareness that we exist. Because when I first visited the sisters in, I think it was 2001, I said, you ladies need to advertise because you got something really great. And they were absolutely horrified. I said, we do not advertise. But by the time I joined the community, I said, I used to advertise, I used to work in advertising in the movie industry, and I was selling a product that I did not believe in. But if I can make the public aware of how wonderful the Episcopal Church is and how wonderful religious life is in the Episcopal Church, I really want to do that. And so I started praying the most dangerous prayer in the world, which is use me. Please use me, God, to raise awareness about the church and religious orders. And that's where this whole crazy ride started, and it brought me to TikTok, of all places. And now I have 225,000 followers, and God has God has placed me in a position as a shy person and an introvert. God has said, all right, I'm going to use you. And so I'm hoping to raise awareness that we exist.
And what's the name of your order?
Our order is the Community of St. John Baptist. We were founded in England in 1852. Our American branch was founded in 1874. And we ministered in New York City for about 60 years and then moved out to Mendham, New Jersey in the early 1900s.
That's great. That's great. And I recommend, and we could talk about this a little bit, you do a wonderful TikTok video about the history of your habit.
Oh,
which is so interesting, so interesting.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about your book,
Yeah.
Change of Habit, your journey to becoming a nun, which was really amazing to read.
Thank you.
To hear about your childhood, which wasn't so easy, and then you wanting to be a comedian, actress,
Yeah.
writer. I think, very honestly, there were hard parts of your
Yeah.
book to read when you went through a very difficult childhood.
Yeah.
And I thank you for your honesty about that. I think that that's beautiful. You're so vulnerable in the book, which I think is so important,
Thanks.
especially in ministry. Can you talk a little bit about that, about your childhood and how it shaped your relationship with God?
Yes, I think people have asked me, wouldn't you have stopped believing in God in the midst of all the awful stuff that you went through in my childhood and also in my teenage and adult years? And instead of that, it actually, like in the book of Job, brought me closer to God to go through suffering and hardship. Part of it was because I had this contrast between my life with my parents, and then I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. My life with my parents was very chaotic and violent and terrifying. My life at my grandparents' house was very calm and safe and really beautiful. And they were Christians, and they modeled to me the love of Christ. Their relationship with the church, thankfully, we went to a Southern Baptist church, but it wasn't like a toxic religion or anything. It was a very sweet, lovely church, full of church ladies. I just love church ladies. And they were so sweet to me. It was like heaven. So for me, religion and God were the thing that made sense. And the way my parents were living their lives did not make any sense to me. So I always clung to God no matter what I was going through. And I would always ask God, what is the lesson in this? And then one of the sisters at the convent, Sister Victoria, taught me a prayer practice where she said, you have to thank God for your hardships too. And I said, why? I want those to go away. She said, you have to thank God that you're going through something tough because you're going to learn something from it. So I picked up that prayer practice, which really sustained me through my novice years and first profession. So everything that happened to me, I kept clinging to God in the middle of it.
Wow. That was my next question was, do you think it's an integral part of how you became a nun?
Yeah.
Your childhood? Yeah.
I really do, because I felt the call when I was really little, like maybe 7 or 8 years old, when I saw the movie with Audrey Hepburn and A Nun Story, which I'm sure some of you have seen. And compared to the chaos and the craziness of my life, we were always moving, and I was always having to pack my stuff and move somewhere else because we were getting kicked out of apartments or houses. And so everything physically around me was very chaotic, and everybody's moods were chaotic. And then I saw in this movie that the nuns had a very orderly, quiet, beautiful existence. Some people would look at it, like I guess most young girls would look at it and be like, ugh, I don't want to do that. And I think I was the only one that saw the movie and said, I want to do that. Because it made so much sense, you know.
Yes, I saw the movie. Yes,
Good.
Yes.
It's a
I was a little
great movie.
surprised Audrey Hepburn was playing a nun.
I know.
But
It's a
it
stretch.
but it's an
Yeah.
excellent movie, and it does give you a good insight into living
It
as
does.
a nun. Of course, she went out to the Congo. Have you ever felt called to go to the Congo?
I did at first when I was young and strong, but then when I started to get arthritis, I was like, you know what, maybe other people need to go to the Congo. We do support an orphanage in Cameroon, and one of our sisters used to go there every year. I think it was for 2 or 3 months. Chris can, like 2 or 3 months every year. And we're their fundraising arm in the United States. And she has been unable to visit again because she's getting older and also because of the Cameroonian Civil War. But she went through so much going to Africa over the period of 20 years. She got malaria several times and all these diseases we've never heard of. And it was a real hardship to get there, even from the airport in Cameroon. So I give her a lot of credit. She's a lot stronger than I could ever be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big part of that story, was the Congo.
It was, yeah.
You really went through a lot of self-esteem issues and a lot of self-esteem growth that I read through in your book. And, you know, I have to, again, thank you for being so open about that, your struggles with who you were as a person and feeling good about yourself as a woman and as a person. Are there any parts that you look back on and you say, that's it? That was the moment when I knew that I was going to be where I am now. Was there any moment like that?
I think it was always there, like the fact that it wouldn't go away was a big part of the call. And I always, when people are trying to discern a call, I will usually ask them, have you done anything to try to get rid of this call? If so, did you fail at that? Because I tried to get rid of it. I was told, you know, that's not what women are supposed to do. And so many of my friends told me, but your body is made to have children. And so against all those things, I said, well, I guess I do have to give it up because this is frowned upon as something to do. But it wouldn't go away. I tried to cure it in therapy. I tried to do other things. You know, people would say, you should go into acting, because I was doing plays in high school to try and help with my shyness. And I thought, okay, I guess I'll do acting. But my heart wasn't in it. I took an advertising job while I was trying to be an actor. My heart wasn't in that. And I think most of you probably have been in situations where you were just working at a job to make money, or you were in a situation that you just had to get through, but your heart is not in it. And it was very sad to me that I was living a life that wasn't from my heart, and that I was having to tuck God into these tiny cracks between the big bricks of my life. And I really wanted my life to be 100% God. So I took on more and more church work, like many of you probably have. And as I was taking on more and more church work, I got very resentful of my career in advertising, which was very successful. From the outside, it looked like I had this amazing, glamorous job, but I referred to it as my life-sapping day job because it was draining the life out of me. And all I wanted was to do things for God. So the moment when I really left all that behind was when I just got so fed up with my situation at work, especially as a person who was really sensitive to the misogyny in movies and television. The violence against women is just unbelievable in these things. Every time we would do a photo shoot, the art directors would say, we need more guns, we need more blood. You know, we'd have to have these big gallons of fake blood. And the way they objectified women, I thought, you know, I'm just so fed up with all this. I don't want to be part of this problem. And that was 2009 when I said, okay, God, I'm not going to have any more plan Bs. All I want to do is be a nun. I'm not going to do anything else. And that's when doors really started flinging open, was when I finally decided to go all in instead of always having a plan B. Because I thought, I just don't want to get old in advertising.
But you were also a comedian. Didn't you
Yes.
write for the Groundlings, or you were in part of
Yeah.
that group?
Yes.
When did that change for you? Because did you experience similar things about the role of women in that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I went into comedy because all my acting teachers and all the people in my life said, you're funny looking, you should go into comedy. And as an actor, you really get a lot of reality checks about what type you are and what you get hired to do. So I was always put in the category of the wacky one. And so I got into stand-up comedy when I was in college because being Southern, I'm a storyteller, and Southerners tell crazy, vivid stories about things. And so I would tell my friends these stories, and they would say, oh, you got to do stand-up. And I thought, well, my teachers are telling me to go into comedy, because I wanted to be like a serious actress. I wanted to be, you know, Shakespeare and be the female lead. And all my teachers said, you will never be the female lead in anything you do. You got to go for the jobs that you're actually going to get. So that's when I got into comedy. I started doing improv. I did improv in college with some really amazing people. One of them was Mo Willems, who went on to write children's books. I recently reconnected with him, which is incredible, because we're both so much older. And I'm going to have lunch with him and his wife and his child in New York City soon. Yeah. And another one was David Wayne, who started a comedy troupe called The State, which went on to have some TV shows and movies, I think. So I was with some really talented people, but I started to notice the demographics of the comedy space was mostly male. And I went on to Los Angeles. I got accepted into the Groundlings school. You have to go to their school and go through the levels. And then they have the Sunday company, which is the last step before the main company, where it's sort of like getting life professed as a nun. Once you get in, you're in it for life. But I was in the first profession, the Sunday company. I was in there with a lot of great people: Jennifer Coolidge, Sherry O'Terry, Phil Lamar, who was on Mad TV. Nicest guy in the world, by the way. And Nelson Asensio, who was on Mad TV as well. And I started noticing they were all getting jobs, and I wasn't. And I realized the people who were getting jobs were mostly, except for Sherry and Jennifer, were the guys. And anytime I went out to do stand-up, I would get a spot at the Comedy Store or the Improv or something. I was one of like 2 women, and the rest of the comics were men. And then I found out, because I was trying to be a television writer, because that's what a lot of my friends were into, only 10% of the writing staff for television shows was female, and 15% for screenplays. And I don't think it's gotten much better, even though women are 51% of the population. So I realized the odds were really stacked against me, but I was still trying. And then I got to the point where I'd been doing comedy for years and years, in addition to working in advertising. So my life was just full to the brim with my day job and my night gigs. And I thought, I'm the only one in my friend group who has never gotten an agent. I've never gotten a paying job. I just do all this for free. And they were all getting on Seinfeld and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and all this. And so I said, okay, God, I'm going to give it one more year, and then I'm going to give up. And God did not show me, through any miracle that I should stay in the acting business. And my friends kept saying to me the whole time, your heart's not in it. You have to have your heart really in it if you're going to succeed, because that's what's going to open doors for you. And I was like, they're right. I liked doing it, but I didn't like it enough to put everything on the line like they did. So here I am.
That's so interesting. I'm dating myself here, but Gilda Radner wrote in her book about her first year on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, wow.
And if you ever saw that in 1975, the first year that the 3 women shared a dressing room and all the men had their own dressing room. And I thought that was really interesting because the 3 women were the best part of that cast, really, of the original cast of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to talk. Let's get a little bit into the heaviness of being called, because that's a big part of your book.
Yeah.
I think that we talk about calling all the time in church.
Yes.
I've referred to several professions as a calling: a teacher, a nurse,
A mother.
a mother.
Yeah.
I think that those are callings.
Yeah.
But I think it's a special calling to be a nun. So I would love to hear, and I think people would love to hear about what that felt like when we use the word call.
Yeah, I mean, because one of the big questions on my mind was always, God, are you really calling me to do this? Or is this just me being crazy? Is this another one of my crazy ideas? And sorting that out over the years, I kept thinking I was going to come to a place where it was really definite, like there was going to be a big neon sign that said, yes, you're on the right path. And that was my main prayer for all those years, was show me if this is real. And all those years, God was showing me, and I didn't realize it because He was showing me in that it was persistent, it wouldn't go away, and it gave me life. Like every time I went and visited a convent, instead of depleting my energy and my serotonin, it energized me. And then it got to the point where every time I would visit a convent, I would cry when I had to go home, because convents felt like home to me. And my home had never felt like home. I lived in my apartment in West Hollywood for like 13 years. That was the longest I ever lived anywhere. And yet it still didn't feel like a home to me. When I walked into a convent, it was like the energy matched my energy. It's not perfect energy, but it's my energy.
I love hearing that. I think that's wonderful. Because you want to feel that energy. It's like coming into a church. You want to feel the spirit.
Totally.
That's great. Yeah. So do you feel like you had to leave certain parts of who you were behind?
People always ask me, what do you miss about your secular life? I say, I miss going out for sushi, and that's about it.
Do they not allow sushi in the convent?
They do, but it's very expensive. Holy poverty, But I thought I would miss a lot of things about secular life, and I don't, because instead of leaving parts of myself, it was more like leaving a costume and a mask. Interesting that I became an actor, because I left all these masks that I had to wear over the years, pretending to be something I wasn't. I left all that behind, and it was very liberating, actually, because sometimes people will ask me, well, how do you feel having to wear a habit all the time? Wouldn't you like to not wear a habit? And I'm like, thank God I wear a habit. I don't have to think about I don't have to make choices about what to wear, and where if you're called to this, this feels normal, and secular clothes feel weird. And I never in my life enjoyed secular pursuits. I tried really hard to enjoy, when I was in my 20s and my teenage years, going to parties and going out dancing and stuff. I have a lot of sensory issues, so I like a nice, quiet environment. And my friends always thought I was so weird because I didn't like to go places that were loud and crowded. And I was young. I was supposed to be having fun. But I was always thinking, why is this not fun to me? When is it going to start feeling fun? And then the first time I went to a party that was hosted by the Roman Catholic nuns near our convent, I was like, this is fun. This party is fun. I found my fun.
We should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I went to Catholic school, so
That's right.
yes, yeah. Wow, that's great. So there are some things that I think that you could say you felt were freeing.
Yes, definitely. It was more like shedding stuff instead of leaving cherished things behind. I do miss my friends. Thank God for the internet, because we've stayed in touch all these years. We thought we would see each other more often, but because of the pandemic and the distance, I mean, they're all in California. Some of them moved back east, and I do get to see them. We are allowed to see our family and friends. It's not like in the old days where you just tell your family goodbye and you never see them again.
I think that happened in a nun story, didn't
Yes,
it? Yes,
it did.
Yeah. But you still see your family?
Yes, our mother foundress was from a very large Irish family. She was the daughter of a baronet, and family was really important to her. So she was unusual in the sense that when people joined the order, she would emphasize that their family could come visit them. Now we have a month's vacation every year, which that's like a big perk. And I get to see my family. They can come visit me, I can go visit them. So it's really nice. And we have one day off a week on Mondays, so if I want to see friends, I can do that. None of them have taken me out for sushi yet, but
We should have gotten sushi tonight. We could have done that, right? So some of the parts that you had to shed and leave behind. Are there some parts now? I'm bringing this up because you brought it up in one of your TikTok videos. You thank the community during COVID for helping you with your self-esteem.
Yeah, definitely.
So what parts of you do you think you've still carried into the convent with you?
I think, all those years I was slaving away in advertising, I thought, this is useless. I'm wasting my time. But everything I learned in my career, even in acting school, has served me in my life in the convent. I never would have ever thought that until after I got there. My computer skills, I do graphic design, I designed our website, I market us to the world nonstop, and I think the reason that the sisters were crazy enough to elect me as superior is because I had had administrative skills, I had managed employees and budgeting and handled pretty big projects for years, and so they knew that I was capable of doing that. And it's true, like all those skills that I was building back then, I learned them because I'm a perfectionist. I liked to be good at my job. That's the reason I was so neurotic, is because I was trying to be really good at this job. I was in a very tough industry where you could get fired if somebody didn't like the color of your shirt. So we had to be the best. We had to be really good at what we did. And so I learned to be efficient and manage my time well. I would not have learned those things, I think, if I had joined the convent when I was 18 years old. I would probably developmentally still be 18 years old. So thank God for all those years I was in my life-sapping day job.
So you really brought a lot of that stuff into the
did.
convent with you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women can identify with exactly a lot of the stuff that you have said.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, it's really something. And I think the struggles with self-esteem is something that a lot of women struggle
yeah.
with as well. This feeling of not being worthy enough.
Yes.
We're always fighting for a good job or a better job, but
Yeah.
you didn't want the job as Sister Superior.
I did not. That was one of the things. Be careful, because if you ask God not to, not to make you do something, God's going to make you do that. And the way I build confidence is because God forces me to face my fears. I had a fear of working with unhoused people in New York City, and I said, God, anything but that ministry. I'll design beautiful posters for that ministry. I will help from afar, but I can't work directly with homeless people. So God said, you know what you're going to do? You're going to work with the homeless people. When I first went into the community, I prayed. I definitely remember praying over and over, please, God, don't ever let me be Mother Superior. I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'll run this place in the ground. And then when people started, the sisters started kind of a whisper campaign saying, we're thinking about electing you. I was like, no. Don't you dare. You're going to sabotage yourselves. And they were like, oh, come on. So I didn't think they were actually going to elect me superior until the bishop counted the votes. And I really had this sensation of like my heart was going to jump out of my chest onto the floor. I was so freaked out about it. And I went right into my office because afterwards we all go into the library and we have a really lovely ritual where the new superior goes around and thanks all the sisters. And I hugged each one of them and I said, I love you. And we all started crying because we were big saps. And then I went into my office and I got down on my knees and I said, God, I cannot do this. You're going to have to do this through me. You do it because I don't know what I'm doing. And ever since that prayer, which I've prayed often since, I felt like the Spirit was moving through us. It was not me running the community. It's the sisters and I running the community together because they have a lot of the wisdom and the experience that I don't have. And we have collaborative decision making. We don't, it's not a top-down anymore. We try to make decisions together. And it's messy and it takes longer, but it works better because guess where I learned that? In advertising.
Yeah.
Collaboration. And ever since then, I felt like God, especially during the pandemic, because the world closed down 3 months after I was elected Mother Superior. And I remember crying and saying, God, please help us. Please help us. And I would try to be strong in front of the sisters all day long, and then I would go up and sit on my bed and just sob and say, we're done for. Like, this is the end of the world, right? And there was one time, since I entered the convent, this happens. It never happened before I became a sister. I can feel God's words in my soul, and I felt God's words saying, you're going to be okay. You're all going to be okay. And so that gave me the confidence, the courage to carry on. And I remember asking God, please help me to be brave during all this. And our donors, because we had to shut down our guest ministry. We have 2,000 people a year coming to visit our campus for retreats and groups and things. So we had no income. And our donors donated almost twice as much as they usually do to keep us going for several years, till we could reopen our guest ministry. So God made it happen, not me.
But you were willing to put yourself in God's hands.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is a real witness to your faith.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible experience.
Thank you.
You know, how many of us are struggling all the time and we're just afraid to take that step?
Yeah, to hand it over to God.
It requires so much trust.
It really
so
does.
much trust. Yeah. It's really amazing to hear a story like that. And I think we all have witnesses like that. We just
Amen.
don't always realize it
Very
and
true.
realize how present God is in that moment.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to ask you the Episcopal question.
Fine.
Because here we are at Christ Episcopal Church.
Yeah.
So you experience so many different churches, and you write about it in your book. And there's this great story that you tell about a Baptist pastor who told all of the kids to go home and burn their rock and roll records. Right.
Yes.
And then you talk about being baptized in the different churches. What was it that made you feel at
Episcopal
home
Church.
in the Episcopal Church?
Well, first of all, I had been to the Episcopal Church a couple of times, and I was like, is this just like Catholic with a different name? Like, what is this? Because even the awareness of the word Episcopal is not that high in the general population. Like, if you say to somebody, I'm an Episcopalian, they're like, what? But they know what a Baptist is. They know what a Catholic is. And so I was equally unfamiliar. And I started going to churches in Los Angeles, just trying to see where I felt at home. And all of them had, you know, sometimes when you're trying out different denominations, you feel that little in your soul, which is like, ooh, that didn't land well with me. And I had learned enough about somatic experiences to pay attention to my body. When I was at a church listening to a sermon, I would go, or I would just think, well, I would have to hide that part of myself if I came to this, if I was, because I want to go all in. I want to be a team player. And I sort of despaired of ever finding a place where I could sit in the pew and participate fully without lying. And when I found the Episcopal Church, it was because of a Roman Catholic nun, because at the time I was married and I was miserable, and emailing Roman Catholic nuns and saying, I know this is going to sound insane, but I'm married and I've always had this urge to be a nun. I'm not Roman Catholic. I said, I have some struggles with the Roman Catholic dogma and doctrine right now. Do you think they'll ever have female priests? And do you think they'll ever be embracing of the LGBTQ plus community? Because so many of my friends were in that community. And do you think they'll ever embrace reproductive freedom? And this Roman Catholic nun emailed me back and said, probably not for 500 years, but you sound like an Episcopalian. And that's when everything changed. I said, Episcopalian, what are they? I said, well, they don't have nuns, though. And she said, oh, yes, they do. So she's the one who really set me on the path. And I remember I was working at a PR firm in Beverly Hills, and I went into work the next day, and it was like the dawn of the internet. And I looked up the Episcopal Church website. Thank God for their communications team, because they had all the beliefs, like the core beliefs, and how they felt about certain political issues, which we see as gospel issues. And I thought, wow, every one of these checks my boxes. Like, I don't have to go to church and lie about believing in stuff that I don't believe in. I don't have to pretend to be okay with no female leadership and no female clergy. It's all there already. So I started going, and I was like sneaking in by myself, very shy. I'm an extreme introvert. And so I didn't go to coffee hour. I was like, I can't talk to people. So gradually, there was such a great parish. It was All Saints Church in Beverly Hills, and they drew me in a very kind, it was almost like when you see a stray cat and you're just very careful with them. That's how they were with me. And before I knew it, I was a Eucharistic minister. I was doing home visits. I was, because they had a lot of services on Christmas and Easter, I was doing Eucharistic minister at all those services. I was on the prayer team. I led a discernment group for people. They were all discerning the priesthood, and I was discerning being a sister. I was the only one. And I was a leader in the Alpha program. And it was all because they were so kind and welcoming to me, saying, you know what, we think you'd be good on the Alpha team. So they're good at recruiting. So that's how.
Well, I love hearing that. That's wonderful. Yeah, because the Episcopal Church welcomes you. That's our sign. The Episcopal Church welcomes you. And I've always felt that there's a place for everybody in the Episcopal Church.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so let's just talk a little bit about making God a priority in your life. You have a wonderful way of color coding things.
Yes.
And somebody who loves to be organized. Loved that. And so just talk a little bit about that, about how you decided you were going to make God a priority.
Well, I was really at a crossroads in my life, because at that time, it was like 1999, I think. I was thinking, I can't be in advertising forever. This is killing me. But I don't know what else I can do. It's like the mafia. Once you're in, you can't get out. And the entertainment industry in general is that way. Your skills are so niche and specialized. Like, I couldn't even go to what they would call a legit agency, like BBDO. These big advertising agencies they advertise cars and ketchup and whatever, because my field was so specialized. So I bought a book called What Color Is Your Parachute? I don't know if people have read it. It was a great book. And I was reading a lot of self-help books because I couldn't afford therapy back then. And I read What Color Is Your Parachute to try to get me on the track to whatever career I could transition into. I'd been trying to transition into church work for a long time, but it didn't even pay a living wage. So I thought, my apartment's really expensive, so I'm going to have to get a job. And in that book, they have an exercise where you list all of your values. And that exercise was life-changing for me, because I think it was like your top 5 values. Number 1 was God. Number 2 was family. Number 3 was career. And then there were 2 sort of inconsequential ones I can't even remember. But number 1 was God. And I really stopped and thought, if my number 1 value and priority is God, why am I not living my life according to that? So that's when I started color coding my calendar. Anything that was church is purple. And things I really didn't want to do, like go to work, was red. And things that were kind of okay were yellow. Family things were green. I'm a really visual person, so just seeing how my calendar looked according to color, I was like, look, there's one little purple thing, and look at all that red. Why is my time being spent on something that I don't want to do pretty much every day? Even friends that I had, they were sort of industry friends who were kind of aggressive and bloodthirsty. I mean, I met a lot of industry friends who were wonderful and kind, but a lot of them were kind of sharks. So I thought, why am I hanging out with these people? Like, what's the purpose? Networking but that's not my priority. I don't really care if I get ahead in this profession. So why am I hanging out with so-and-so just because she's an executive at Fox? You know, like, I don't like her. So I started.
Who was that? No.
I'm going to name check this person. I'm sure she's probably better now. She's probably had therapy.
You pray for her.
Yes, I do. But looking at those colors really helped me to transition to more and more purple. I added more purple into my calendar, added more church work, and it still wasn't enough because I was working 60, 70 hours a week in advertising. And I always had side jobs too, a total workaholic. So I always had a side job and then some gigs, dog sitting, house sitting, just to bring in cash. Because I grew up really poor, so I was hustling for money since the day I was born. I was raking yards in my neighborhood when I was 7 years old for a quarter. So that's how I was as an adult. And I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I not focusing on the number 1 thing that's the center of my life? And so ever since then, my calendar started getting more and more purple. And now I still use the color coding systems, yeah. And I have a lot of purple. It's mostly purple.
Oh, that's great. I think that's good. Wow, that's really interesting because I think we all struggle with that. There are certain things we have to do.
Yes, yes.
And we want to make other things a priority, and we can't seem to find the time, or
So
we're
true.
tired, or we can't seem to make room for it.
Yeah.
So I really want to open this up for a couple of questions, but I do want to ask you one last thing.
Sure. Okay.
Is that you have another call,
Yes.
and if anybody read A Change of Habit, you know that Sister Monica is on the road to the priesthood.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you
That's so
very
exciting.
much.
So
Thank
just
you.
talk very briefly about the fact that you've got this this new role, this
Yeah.
new calling coming up, and I'm really, really excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I had felt the call to be a nun since I was a child, and then I didn't feel called to be a priest until I was visiting a convent in Santa Barbara in like 2020, or no, it was earlier than that. Must have been 10 years before that. But anyway, I used to go up to the Sisterhood of the Holy Nativity in Santa Barbara, and they had daily Eucharist. And the monks from Holy Cross would come down and celebrate Eucharist. But if one of them couldn't show up, or there was, wires got crossed or whatever, we would just have to sit there in silence and meditate. And I thought, if you ever allow me to become a nun, I want to be a priest so I can celebrate Mass for my sisters. And so that was actually 2000, because it's been that long. And all those years, I kind of kept that, and I joined the community of St. John Baptist because they had 2 sisters that were priests. And then when I was made a novice, I said, you know what, I'm also feeling the call to be a priest. And they said, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. No more sisters are going to become priests. And anytime I would bring it up, like there was one sister who from across the room would always say, we're not doing that again. And so I thought, well, my main call is to be a sister, and I want to be obedient to my community, so I just kind of put it away. But there was a lot of grief. I was very sad. There were times that I cried. I would watch other people celebrating the Eucharist, and it would just tug at my heart, because to perform the sacraments was really what drew me to the priesthood and to be with people at these moments in their lives, and to celebrate Mass for my sisters it was so sad that I couldn't do that. And then our bishop visitor, Alan Shin from the Diocese of New York, he's our bishop visitor, and he came out. He used to meet with us individually, like during his visitation. He met with me individually, and he said, "So what's going on with your call to the priesthood?" And I said, "Well, the community says no, so I have to be obedient." He said, "That's ridiculous. That's not between them and you, that's between you and God." So he went and told the superior, "You're going to let her go through the ordination process." So they said I could dip my toe in it. I could take a couple of classes at seminary and see how that went. And for the first time in my life, I made straight A's. And really loved it.
That's very impressive.
Thank you. I couldn't believe it. And then, the process from the start of my discernment to now has been about 6 years, because the pandemic really slowed things down a lot, and our diocese was going through a lot of changes. So I'm going to be ordained as a deacon on November 30th. Yay! At long last.
So will you be called the Reverend Sister, or?
Actually, the interesting thing about our community is the Sister Superior is already known as the Reverend Sister so-and-so. Yeah, it's just an old-fashioned thing that they still do. So I'll still just be Sister Monica.
Will they call you Mother Monica?
No.
No.
Well, one of our previous superiors got rid of the mother thing, because we still casually call it Mother Superior because that's what people are familiar with. But it's Sister Superior because she didn't want to infantilize the sisters. She didn't want to make them children. So that makes sense.
Lots of women clergy are called Mother.
That's right.
Yes, yes. When I was ordained at 27, people started calling me Mother, and I would look for my mother in the room.
Right.
Yes. 'cause
Who's Mother?
Mother, but they do it, especially in the South. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy
Thank
for you.
you.
That's
Thank you.
wonderful. So why don't we take, Margaret's got a mic, and let's see if there's any questions that anybody might have.
You can ask me anything. Don't think it's too weird, too awkward.
Hi there. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you.
I love the way you talk about being called and purpose, and you talked a little bit about turning things over. And I think for me, I feel like I'm on a journey to get closer to God, and also on a journey to understand how do you turn things over. And sometimes it seems like you're supposed to take action, and sometimes it seems like you're not supposed to, and sometimes it's really scary. And I was just curious if you had any advice for me in terms of getting closer to God, hearing God,
Yeah.
and then being maybe, I don't know if brave is the word, but just being able to turn it over to God and feel
Yeah.
calm about that.
I mean, what we do as religious to grow closer to God is we work on our prayer life. We try to learn as many different forms of prayer as we can, because the closer you are to God, the better your decision making will be, because you feel God in it, and you learn to listen to the voice of God in others and in whatever peer group you have. Just all the time that you spend in prayer is very worthy, because it brings you closer to God, even when it doesn't work. Like there are some forms of prayer, like centering prayer. I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. But contemplative prayer, other practices of prayer really, really bring me closer to God. Some practices will be good for one period of your life and they stop working, like medication. And then you pick up another form. And any kind of prayer that you can study from even other faith traditions, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, there are always valuable prayer practices. Now, what was your other question about?
I guess just about how you know when you're being called to something.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, like deepening your prayer life. Talk to the clergy, I would say. Even if you're discerning a career change, talk to a trusted priest or, somebody within the church, and then talk to people who are already doing that and see, how they feel about it on the other side. Like, I was glad that I took all those years to visit sisters and brothers and talk to them, because if I had done that with advertising, I never would have gone into advertising. Because people are like, oh, it's awful. But, and I always say, some people are called to advertising. It gets them up every morning. It's their reason for being. And they felt that call in a non-spiritual, non-God way. But I can't do that. I need God for my decision making. And and trust that just feeling the call and going toward it could be bringing you toward another call that's the real one. So hope
Thank
that
you.
helps.
Any other questions? Oh, here's a question.
I'm a cradle Catholic
Mm.
and always fascinated by nuns, Trouble with Angels, Bells of St. Mary's, Dolores Hart.
Seen 'em
You
all,
brought up
seen 'em
like
all.
all the way through. And I went to University of Notre Dame, so was with, lots of Catholic nuns there. I know as I'm 66, so there was a huge fall off of people joining
Yeah,
the sisterhoods, and you were older when you joined.
yeah.
Are you guys getting younger people in? Do you tend to get, you said, an 18-year-old would not bring
Yeah.
what you brought.
Yeah.
Are you getting any younger people in? Are older people coming in? What is the health of
Viability. or
yeah,
something.
of either, the monks or nuns or that religious life?
We are, in the Anglican communion, we're a little bit different because our communities have always been small. They're usually, like our community, we had 300 sisters in the early 1900s. That's the biggest we ever got. We were the largest community, whereas the Catholic Church still has tens of thousands of religious. And our main number that we've always kind of maintained is around 12. It's like an average of 12 sisters. So right now we do have 12 sisters. Our novice is 33 years old. We had a postulant who came in last November in her 20s, but she didn't stay. And we do get interest. My generation, Gen X, zero interest except me. I'm the only one, kind of. And millennials, Gen Z, all those, very interested. We get a lot of inquiries. And our vocations director is really careful about it because in the old days, all you had to do was just show up and they'd be like, sure, you could be, whatever. So you had a lot of people who are dealing with serious mental health problems. And they sort of poisoned the well in many ways because not much was known about that then. And then they were abusing children, and you had predators who infiltrated the church because predators love communities of vulnerable people that they can victimize. So there wasn't really any safety valve back then. Mental health screenings made the population go down really far, unfortunately. And so now we're getting people who are actually called to this, not just looking for some fix that's going to fix their life. Women especially are called to other things. Before, the only way you could get an education and travel and have a job was to be a nun from the ancient times. The only way you could get out of the cycle of motherhood and servitude in your home was to become a nun. And so women got really interested in careers that they couldn't have done at all, especially in the 40s and 50s, even in the 20s. You could become a nurse or a teacher or something. And a school administrator, a principal. You didn't see a lot of males in those roles, but you saw religious. And also, Roman Catholic nuns were part of the general culture for so many years because they had such huge numbers that they became what Joan Chittister calls in her book, Fire in These Ashes, the industrial model of the church, which was hundreds of thousands of people laboring in these huge institutions like hospitals and schools. And gradually, the government took on more and more of the charity work. Before that, it was mostly done by the church and private charities. And so those big institutions went away. The sisters weren't as visible in the community. It used to be that in anybody's hometown, you could go to a basketball game, there'd be some sisters, or priests, or whatever. And in schools, that was the biggest recruitment tool for sisters, was schools, definitely. And they used to funnel young guys in the Roman Catholic Church into seminary when they were 14, 15 years old. Like, they would pluck them very young, and then they had trouble, and they didn't stay because they were too young. The discernment process wasn't as clear, it wasn't as rigorous as it is now. So we feel like we're lower in numbers, but higher in real vocations. And I feel like it's the same with church. Everybody laments that there aren't as many people in the pews. But I think the people in the pews now are people who really want to be there, whereas in the past, the pews were full of people who just did it because it was expected. It was a cultural thing. It was the only place you could network for your job, you know. And and now we have the people who actually want to be there. You're not required. So we have much more committed people in both realms, in monasteries and convents and in churches. So I have a lot of hope.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There any other questions? Any other? Oh, here's a question. A couple of questions right here.
Wow. It was your moment, and it was, wow.
I'm clearly realizing that the insecurity and whatnot that you had growing up has left you. Because you're able to talk so clearly and distinctly
Thank you.
about what this life has produced for you.
Thank you.
So do you find that because you're now in this position as a nun, that this has helped you get through all of this?
100%. I never had any self-esteem until after I became a sister. And especially when I was clothed as a novice, I felt that suddenly I was able to be myself. I was allowed to be myself for the first time. And I used to go to gatherings in the industry. Anytime I would have to go to a gathering, I was really, really freaked out. I had social anxiety. I would break out in hives. I would throw up. It was pretty bad. And I didn't know what to say to people. And the first big gathering we had at the convent was when I was a novice. We had Cornerstone Day, and there were hundreds of people there. And I was not shy. I could talk to everybody, shake their hands, say hello, because I was in the right place. And people are much more affirming of me doing this than anything else I've ever done. Like, even my mom is impressed now. So.
I think it's the habit that does that.
Yes, it adds an air of authority, I guess.
I think we have one more question in the back. Yep.
Hi, Sister Monica. Thank
Hi.
you so much for being here this evening. You're my namesake. My name is Monica as
It's a
well.
great name.
Yes. So I come from a Catholic upbringing. Wasn't overly strict or anything, but that's what I had. So in that regard, I have a couple of questions. Catholic nuns have been able to get rid of their habits. Do Episcopalian nuns have that same liberty?
Yes. In our tradition, I think there are 2 or 3 orders of women who they only wear their habit as a liturgical garment when they're in chapel. We've had talks over the years about giving up our habit, but unanimously we always say, no, we want to keep the habit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up is also Catholic nuns, and I didn't know that there were Episcopalian nuns until
Nobody
your
does.
book,
Yeah,
right?
nobody
And
knows.
that you were coming here this evening. Catholic nuns, like their priests, take a vow of chastity.
Yeah.
Do you have to?
We do.
Okay.
And you'll notice there's a distinction. We don't take a vow of celibacy, we take a vow of chastity, both in the Roman and the English Catholic Church, which means that we are devoted body and soul to God, to Jesus. We stay faithful to God. And it's a different take on it than celibacy. Yes, it is celibacy, but it's because we're being faithful to our Maker.
Oh, those were good. Well, thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're going to, do we have another question? Brian's got a question.
Finally.
Monica was asking this, but why is it different why is the vows different than the clergy? Seems more restrictive.
Yeah, it's funny because people are always asking me, do you sisters ever get upset that you're not allowed to get married? And I always say, what would make you think that we would want to get married? Because the truth is, we're not called to marriage. If I was called to marriage, I would be married, And all of us have chosen this path because it fits who we really need to be. Some people are called to marriage. They do very well at it. Parenthood, that's a high calling, marriage and parenthood, but we're not. So even if I went out into the secular world and became a priest, I still wouldn't get married. So-
So it is stricter than becoming a priest.
It is,
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
And we have holy poverty, which is pretty hardcore.
Yes, yes. I think I know some clergy that would have a hard time with it. Yes, right.
Yes.
Right. But it is a different vocation. It's a very
Definitely.
different vocation.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, well, I think, do we have any other, I think we've gone over our hour.
Okay.
but,
Excellent.
But
Oh,
I just wanted to thank you
One
so
minute.
much for being here, just for being
thank
here
you.
and
Thank
for
you
your
all.
time and for your book. And I really recommend that you read this book if you haven't had a
appreciate
chance
that.
to read it.
Well, and one thing I forgot to say is the proceeds from the sale of the book go to help support the convent where Sister
Thank
Monica
you.
Clare is.
That's so sweet.
So,
Thank you.
know, you're doing a good thing. So.
Thank you. We'll put it to
So-
good use.
Yeah, so Sister Monica Clare will be able to sign the books, and Dogwood is open if anybody wants to come in and do any shopping. But I completely enjoyed that, so thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
Thank you
coming.
so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
So much. So I hope everybody will stay. We have a little reception. Just stay. And again, thank you so much for being here.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
and congratulations on your upcoming ordination.
At long last, yes. And please come visit us, everybody.